All right, hello, friends. Do not adjust your cameras. I know Trey Strelko's shocker is on PTO this week, so be okay though, because we've got two of our favorites with us here. We've got our good friend Dolly Drama. You can find on the Sons of UCF.com, a fantastic columnist for us, and my good friend Jeff Allen, who usually does a minute on here. He's been so good at the minutes. We decided to give him 60 minutes tonight. He's going to co-host a show with us. You can also find Jeff Allen, by the way, on his own podcast, the Jeff Allen Sports Talk Show, available wherever you get quality podcasts. Jeff, Dolly, thanks for stepping in for PTO Trailco tonight. We appreciate it.
The T in PTO stands for Trace.
Yes. that is irrefutable. We got a good one for you all tonight. We got Ben Hazel coming up. We got Kelly Ford coming up. So don't go anywhere. Stay with us. But as always, friends, we start with football. I know, Dolly, you're always on top of this kind of stuff. I know you get the Athlon magazine all the time, and they have the preseason Big 12 out, and we have a couple of folks on there on the first team: Malachi Lawrence, Kobe Hudson, Lee Hunter. But maybe the most surprising is second team RJ Harvey. So the RJ Harvey disrespect tour continues. Jeff, what are your thoughts on the three gentlemen selected first team, and then secondly, another RJ Harvey snub? What's going on with that?
Yeah, that's it's really difficult because this conference is stacked at the running back position. You look at a guy like Taj Brooks. He had 1,500 yards last year, so he's no slouch and probably worthy of first team consideration. So, but you look at the body of work of what RJ Harvey's doing. I kind of like this though, because I'm hoping he's taking these snubs and putting them in the bank.
Dolly, little chip on the shoulder for RJ.
Yeah, I kind of want that. I think we were kind of just believing our hype a little bit too much. I mean, the two guys in front of him on the first team are Ollie Gordon, which has been the sweetheart of the league that they try to make a thing. And he's awesome, but we just kind of look at him and didn't think he was that great because he ran into a buzzsaw during the space game for us. And then Taj Brooks as well. I mean, he had a career game against us out in Lubbock, so I can see why that's first team. But yeah, I like the little chip on our shoulder, and I think RJ is quietly has a ton of bulletin board material that he'll unleash this fall.
Joining RJ on the second team is Deshaun Pace, new linebacker, and third team is Xavier Townsend. Dolly, of the three guys who are on the first team, Malachi, Kobe, and Lee Hunter, does any of that surprise you, or any names on that first team that you were kind of like, I didn't see that one coming?
No, I think Kobe Hudson's going to take over for the wide receiver room, and we had a true 1A, 1B kind of situation with Javon Baker. Lee Hunter's been doing solid. I mean, Malachi Lawrence, I just hope we can keep him after this year. Hopefully he has a big year again, but he just kind of popped into the scene and gave us some depth at the defensive line. But no, I'm pretty excited about that for that first team. The only thing I'm surprised would be that RJ Harvey wasn't on that.
Jeff, one name missing on the four teams here is one KJ Jefferson. Any surprise that KJ didn't crack any of these teams? I know obviously he's new to the Big 12, but he's obviously a big name, a big resume from the SEC. Any surprise that KJ not mentioned on any of these top four teams from Athlon Sports?
Yeah, I mean, not really surprised. I didn't think that he was going to get enough pub coming in on that. You look at the fact that they, Shedeur Sanders is obviously a name that coming in as a second team guy. And of course, we've seen the work that Jalen Daniels at Kansas does. So not surprised by that at all.
Dolly, any snub for KJ?
I think he's maybe have some mindset of that he could still rock in this league. I think every guy from the SEC coming over to a Big 12 looks at it as maybe I kind of ran some man ball before, and he put up crazy numbers in the best division of college football. I think he needs some time to gel, but if anything, to have him under the radar and then to also have the insurance policy of Ja'Cory Brown behind him, I think it's good that he's not getting too much hype. He seems pretty low key, to be honest, as well.
All right. Well, what won't be low key, gentlemen, according to UCF, are some of the crowds this year. We announced sellouts. Colorado, BYU, Arizona have all been announced as sellouts already. A bunch of people are already paying their mortgage off resale of those Colorado tickets. I'm looking at you, JP Gilbert. So, gents, are you surprised at these three sellouts? Are these the three biggest games you see? One game I don't see on there, obviously, is the Utah game. It's Black Friday. We'll see where that kind of lands up. But are you surprised, Dahlia, these are the games that are sold out already? Do you anticipate more of these, if not all of the Big 12 games selling out?
No, I mean, Colorado is obviously has a lot of hype the last 2 years. Deion Sanders' return back to the Sunshine State is huge. And then you also have BYU's an international brand, so they're going to bring people as well. And I think Arizona sold out too for our space game. So I think that first lot of conference mates that are coming to Orlando are juiced for it. And then I even looked at my tickets that I have in section 233, and they're going for 197 a pop. So that's tempting as well. Maybe on the JP Gilbert mutual index fund right there as well.
I find that interesting as well. Utah will sell out. I've got a good feeling about that as well. And we're starting to develop a little bit of something with BYU in this conference. So I think that's not a surprise to me there as far as that goes. What I don't want to see is like a repeat of the West Virginia game last year with all the resales and the very heavy Mountaineer population there.
Yeah, that was annoying. Here's a fun question for you. I'll start with you, Dolly. Of the 3 games that we have on the slate here, Colorado, BYU, Arizona, which is the most winnable for UCF?
I think just to kind of figure out what we're going to be, I would start off with Colorado. I think there's going to be a lot of hype. We haven't had a really hyped atmosphere, depending on the game time of that game, in quite some time. Even our first year, in the Big 12, I thought the crowds were going to be a little bit more ruckus. 3:30 for Baylor was kind of light as well, and people kind of pilfer out. I think Colorado is the most winnable. We'll have a bye before it. Hopefully, we take care of business at TCU and get some momentum. But that's kind of like the heat check of what type of year we're going to have to kind of go forward.
Jeff, what do you think? What most winnable of these 3?
I think BYU is the most winnable of the 3. As far as the juice goes, I mean, I guess some of the talk is Colorado could be a big noon kickoff on Fox. If that happens, that I think that's going to be like the Cincinnati game in years past. And if we get that kind of juice, I like our chances in that game too.
Well, if we win that game, gentlemen, it'll depend largely on the play of a lot of our different position groups, including the secondary. Trish Trocco is hard at work every week, posting a new poll asking you, are you satisfied with the position group? This week is the secondary. The results are in. 75% of the audience are satisfied with what we have in the secondary. Obviously, 25% not satisfied. You've got some guys returning, right? You got some new guys, obviously at safety and corner. A couple of losses there. Probably Corey Thornton, the most glaring loss. But you bring in guys like Ladarius Tennyson. You bring in guys like Antoine Jackson, Traquan Fagans, right? You got some guys coming in. Dolly, did the audience get it right? Is 75% the number of which you should be satisfied with what UCF potentially has in the secondary?
I think people are just excited to kind of get a little bit of a revamp on that side of the ball. I mean, we're bringing in a new defensive coordinator. The big story last year was just our tackling, our linebackers, being a sieve, and then tackling on the back end wasn't that great. Losing a DB like Nikai Martinez, that kind of hurt because it's a hometown hero. That's a kid you'd want to see here stay. But I think he kind of saw what we were kind of bringing in as well. And we lost about 53% of our tackling production into the portal or just graduation this past year. And we're returning our 4 top tacklers that we have. Of that are some DBs and Damari Henderson and Quadric Bullard. So I think we have some young guys that saw some reps that have a bad taste in their mouth for some things that kind of got away from us last year. I think 75% may be a little bit too high, but it's definitely on the plus side of being more optimistic for this year.
Yeah, Jason Johnson getting a lot of pub out of spring ball. Jeff, is this the group? I know linebackers, to Dolly's point, were probably the most glaring opportunity. Is this the group you have the most questions about, or is there another group for UCF?
Yeah, so I would have thought that the poll would have been like 50-50 on the secondary, just based on what we lost, and this is all really going to be dependent on, to me, what the transfers do. I think this is where the opportunity. We're going to see how good we have been on the recruiting trail in the transfer portal. I think that's going to be the make or break for us.
All right, we'll continue to keep on this football coverage. You can count on PTO Choco to make sure that more polls are posted. I think we're out of position groups. I guess it's special teams next week. I don't know where Trace is going to go with that next week, so stay tuned to see what magic he drums up. But switching gears quickly, the long-awaited announcement is finally here via Matt Murschel of the Orlando Sentinel. Broke that Johnny Dawkins did indeed sign that contract extension. His compensation jumps from $1.7 million to $2 million this upcoming season. Will eventually become 2.2 for the 26-27 season, his final year of this deal. Dolly, did Terry Mohajir and UCF get this right in inking Johnny to this contract?
Yeah, you had to, and I'm glad that Terry just tacked on 2 years. He still had the option for the last year, so it's essentially 3 years with a 2-year extension. For what we've kind of pumped in with the paltry resources that we did last year with the upgrades of facilities, and it looks like we're definitely getting some more NIL juice for this go around with the portal, how we've been attacking it. You kind of had to see what you have there. You're not going to get a better high character guy than Johnny Dawkins for what we have. He's still the lowest paid head coach in the Big 12. But I don't think he necessarily had any suitors, but I think he's best suited for UCF. And I think we're giving each other exactly what we, equal amounts. We're in it together.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the amount of time that we've tacked on is just appropriate. We exceeded expectations last year, basically with a whole new roster. So I think Johnny earned that opportunity. And of course, I know the anti-Johnny crowd, is probably not happy about this, but then I always like to ask the question, okay, well, if we fire Dawkins, who are we going to get? That's the hard question to answer. So unless you were going to go after Dusty May, but you would have lost that battle
quickly
with bigger teams
yes.
quickly, or are you going to back up the Brinks truck and try to talk Jay Wright out of retirement? Yeah, if you tell me you got a shot at those guys, yeah, but I didn't see anybody out there that would be a suitable successor at this point in time. And I think keeping some stability there as we continue the early days of the conference is key.
Yeah, you can say a lot of things about Coach Dawkins. One thing you can say is he's never going to get you in trouble, right? He's always going to be a by-the-book coach who's going to represent your university well. But a lot will depend upon how this 24-25 team produces on the court. Obviously, to your point, Dolly, a lot of new faces coming in again this year. And we've seen a lot of videos coming out here. So we thought it may be time to check in with our good friend, Ben Hazel. You know him from previous UCF Live appearances. Used to be a former development coach for UCF, spent some time playing with Princeton, and has now grown a fantastic-looking beard. So first off, Ben, thanks for coming back on the Suns. Also, happy early Father's Day to you. I think it's your first Father's Day as a new father. So happy late Father's Day to you, rather. But you heard the conversation as you kind of came in. What is your take on the Johnny Dawkins contract extension? Is this the right move for both UCF and for Coach Dawkins?
It's well deserved. I think UCF, I think as a fan base, we just got to come to understand, like, we're kind of getting a steal, right? Like, it's the lowest paid coach, but he's a consummate professional, somebody that understands college basketball, always looking out for the kids, really knows his X's and O's, and also is kind of turning things around. Like, we're starting to get some players that are starting to look at UCF as a place to develop and get themselves ready to play at the next level, because that's how Coach Dawkins coaches.
Ben, great to talk to you. So when we look at this, we're now like on a second consecutive year with a pretty, revolving door of players because of the transfer portal. What is your take on that? Is that something that will start to subside as we continue our journey in the Big 12?
No, it's not going to change. It's something that, that's kind of with coaches' extensions. Since we were just on that topic, that's something that is going to adjust basically as NIL kind of continues on in the transfer portal. Coaches aren't being graded upon how guys can stay and graduate and develop. That's not necessarily the same, has the same emphasis that it once did. So you're really looking at just how teams can piece together rosters while we figure out the NIL thing. I think we did the right thing by keeping a steady piece at the helm. And we have something to be excited about next year. This is, I was looking at the roster and what some of these guys were doing last year. This is the most firepower, I think, and one of the more talented teams Coach Dawkins has had in recent history.
So not only we kind of revamped the roster, we're also revamping help with the coaching staffs with the addition of Adam Hood and Carlos Dotson. Adam Hood came from UTSA. He played with Curry, and in those 8 years that he was there, he was in top 40 of rate of play. What can those guys bring? Dawkins is obviously going to embrace a defensive mindset and make points off of that transition. What can those guys juice on the offensive side of the ball and kind of lead into that firepower?
Yeah, the one thing that they will bring is just a level of creativity that I don't necessarily think we had last year on the offensive end. That's something that you just kind of see around just guys that really understand how to score the ball. They dumb things down, but are able to get you to look at the offensive end in a different way. So I think that's what they'll be able to bring on an individual perspective and even from a team perspective. So I really do expect us to be able to score the ball next year. I'm like, for the first time, I'm kind of like, hey, I think we'll be able to put on a show, have some fireworks where we're kind of going back and forth some of those high scoring games instead of, we'll beat Kansas, but it just won't be 65-60.
I like beating Kansas. Ben, we were talking before the show started, a lot of names on this roster, names that we don't know about, right? But from a coach's standpoint, take us inside. What's the thought process around the transfer portal? Are you looking for pieces? Are you looking for just, is this like a draft best available? Are you looking for someone to kind of fit a need? How did Coach Dawkins and the staff go about kind of filling in these pieces and finding the guys who are on this roster?
It's an extremely fluid situation, let's say that. But as far as putting it together, I think it pretty much for every team, it starts with best available. I mean, you typically have, whether it be somebody graduating or somebody transferring, everybody's looking for that next best replacement. So you're trying to see who, you've had contact with, who's open to it, who you can have these conversations with, kind of how quickly you can have them. And then you just go from there. And then as time goes on, you kind of start to try to fill specific spots. But I think we have a lot of talent. Like we bringing in some pieces with some guys that have done it at this level. So I think we, can really have some things to look out for, especially shooting the ball. That's an area that I think we drastically improved in with the guys we brought in.
Who do you look at with this new roster being kind of like the glue guy? Like to me last year, Shamari Allen was kind of that guy, right? He could plug in at the point. He could rebound. He could do a lot of different things to help the team win. Do you see somebody on the roster now that kind of fills that glue guy mold?
I think it'll be either Darius or Jalen. It's going to be one of the returners because the new guys coming in, especially at the guard spot, I mean, they're extremely talented guys that you could just throw the ball and score. Jordan Ivy, Curry, the kid Keyshawn. Those are some names that I think you guys will hear a lot next year, and they can really score the ball. But those two guys returning, I think, will provide that kind of glue, that understanding of the offense and the defensive end, how to make plays on both ends, really being those guys that have been through the ringer in the Big 12 and really understanding what it takes to win.
The last time Dawkins had a big man that was highly touted from Senegal in the paint, we went pretty far in we had a good chunk in the tournament. What do you think kind of Thiem looks at our opportunity? It's a relationship specifically with Dawkins, but also what we have as well. What do you think he can kind of chip away and kind of showcase UCF in a different light for elite talent like that across the country?
I think what I like about him is some of the similarities I see between his game and Taylor Hendricks, right? So what I mean by that is I don't look at him and say, hey, we're going to be just throwing him the ball and running all these plays for him. But I think you'll still fill the stat sheet regardless, right? Like he's a really high energy guy and he's extremely athletic and can get up and down the floor. So I think he'll be able to be productive while he's learning just because of his motor. As long as he can kind of take those lumps early on that just happen for freshmen. And then I think he'll be a guy that'll make an impact and really seize the opportunity he's going to have, because I think he will get the opportunity, right? Like he's the number one thing for a freshman is, are you going to get to play? So I think he'll definitely get that. And I think, the talent and that work ethic and the skill will really start to shine just as he gets more acclimated.
Ben, a name I'm intrigued by is Benny Williams, 6'10", 200 pounds, from Syracuse, went to IMG Academy, had a bit of an up and down college career so far, but a ton of potential, a ton of talent, a ton of size. I don't know how much you've seen him play or scouted him, but he seems like one of those that could be either sort of boom or bust, right? Like the best thing we ever did or doesn't do much. What do you expect out of Benny Williams? How do you think he fits into this UCF system?
I'm actually familiar with Benny, and that's my sleeper pick for this season, so you can mark it down right now. That kid is extremely talented. I think he's one of those guys that just got caught up in a tough situation and didn't really get to showcase. And I think one thing that what we have this year is guys that were able to play and be productive. But I think with what they were able to do last year and then coming into a Coach Dawkins system, they'll really kind of appreciate how he goes about it. And I think that's something that'll really help a guy like a Benny Williams. And just a side note, he's from my hometown, Bowie, Maryland. So, he's thorough through and through, from my opinion.
Hey, he's got the good endorsement there. That's awesome.
I'll take it. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're optimistic about this team, having better scoring potential. Of course, the mark of a Johnny Dawkins team is defense. How do you see that working with this group? I
think it'll be great. Right. So because Coach Dawkins will place that emphasis, but you'll have some guys that'll be like, OK, that's cool, coach. But what we're running at the end of this shot clock, like, am I getting this ball? But I think it'll provide like a good balance. Right. Like, and I think with Coach Dawkins, I mean, he was one of the best players to play in college basketball. And one thing that he was able to do was turn defense into offense. So I think it'll be a great shared experience of different viewpoints on just kind of how to go about it. They'll bring that creativity on the offensive end, and Coach Dawkins will show them different ways that, playing good defense, being in the right position can actually lend to that.
We kind of caught lightning in a bottle yesterday last year with some transfers that we had, and year to year is going to be very different. What would be a good step for us for year 2 in the Big 12? It's going to be more conference games. We're moving up to 20 games. We don't know how the breakout is going to be. I don't think there's any buys in between as well. Health being not a factor and just kind of guys meshing. What do you think is a good step for these guys? Tournament, win an NIT. What would be the next step kind of for us in this embark into the Big 12?
That one, I don't know if I'm ready to put out there just yet. We got some new additions to the conference that are no joke. We've had a lot of transfers. That NIL thing has changed for a lot of programs. So you're seeing guys move in different places. So it's a little early to tell, what we're going to do in the overall. I mean, I think we'll be right there. I think we'll be competitive in every game, just the way Coach Dawkins seems to be. But I think we'll have a shooter's chance, which is, pretty fun.
As long as we can shoot, we'll have a shooter's chance. Ben, I know we talk a lot about the new guys coming in, and sometimes you forget about the guys who've been here. A name we were really excited about last year that didn't really get a chance to play a ton is Tyler Hendricks, Taylor's brother. What do you expect out of him this season? Again, he didn't get a ton of run this past year. I'm sure some of this transfer stuff kind of fuels him a little bit too. Any expectations for Tyler here as he thinks about this, third season at UCF, second season that he's on the court?
Yeah, I think the thing with Tyler is just he hopefully, one of the things that he was able to learn is just the importance of his approach to the everyday part of this. And with the transfers that we got coming in, that's only going to be harder because you got some guys that already know how to approach things and have already had that success in the college basketball scene. So he's going to have a tough hill to climb just because of the talent that he has in his position. So, it's going to be pretty tough. I mean, starting this summer, I hope, he's really been in there proving, that he deserves to be in the mix. But I do know with the talent that we have coming in, it's going to be tough to really make that role grow more than, really what he got last year, honestly.
Keeping on the theme of returning guys, of course, we talked about Darius Johnson being a glue guy. What has been your analysis of his maturation over his time in his career here at UCF?
Well, I mean, with where he finished off, I'm like, I can't wait for next year from him because it seems like everything's just starting to slow down. It's something that, coach has really been on him hard over the past 2 years, just about maturing the mentality side of this thing. So that he was able to really settle down, start to make a shot, really understand the offense, pick and choose his spots, when to be aggressive offensively and defensively, because he loved to foul, especially his freshman year. So, that maturity is showing up, and I think he's found a way to really piece it together for 40 minutes. And that's what you want out of your upperclassmen guards and out of your returners. So that's why I'm actually pretty excited about next year. The guys that have the ball the most are our most mature guys. And have done it for us before. So they'll have some new pieces. I'm excited to see kind of how they piece it together.
Should everything go as planned and Mikey Williams is eligible to play this fall, what does a guy like that kind of bring to a team? And is there any rust to knock off if you haven't played kind of organized ball in maybe over 2 years?
Oh, there's a ton of rust because it's not only that you just didn't get to play organized ball, you never really played at this level, right? So he has an extremely uphill battle to climb. I think fans need to really, level set their expectations. I know Instagram and all of that stuff is great at, bolstering people's status. But I do know the guys, like if I'm a college guy like a Darius and, you're grown, you're older, we're playing for NIL money now. No Instagram followers come with you into practice and open gym. So it's going to be about the work and what he shows. I think he's an extremely talented kid, but I do think, there's going to be some growing pains there just because of the talent that we have at his position, literally. So two of the more physical returners in the conference coming back, picking you up full court one-on-one. Then you got new transfers trying to prove themselves literally at your position. So it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a grind. But I do think, eventually he will be a main contributor for us. But when that happens, I'm not really sure just yet. And I'm not one of the people that is coming to this saying that he's the piece that's going to change the game for us. I think it'll be, those two returners in some of those upperclassmen.
Ben, last year, Jalen Sellers started off, pretty hot, right? And then I think as we got into league play, defense has kind of shifted in gear towards him a little bit, right? He had hit a wall at some point in time. If Jalen Sellers called you and said, hey, Ben, what do I need to work on this offseason? What would you tell Jalen he needs to kind of continue to do to grow his game?
Well, then I think the thing is just working on that counter to his initial moves, right? So, of course, making a shot, I mean, that's something that he'll do at a much better clip next year. But really just working on some different options, changing directions when guys stop him, instead of kind of trucking through guys and getting that contact and getting that foul, being able to change direction and kind of create separation, which I think will be something he might even learn himself just by playing against a Jordan Ivy Curry, because that's what he does. He does that, with some of the best of them. So if you haven't had a chance to check his clips out, definitely do. But so that's what I would work on if I was him. Just working on counters, even starting with your left hand. Like, let's work on some counters, going about that pump fake, and now let's get downhill and change direction and work on some different options out of that.
As you look at the Knights, as now they go second year into the Big 12, what is your impression of the atmosphere? Because we really saw an explosion in the atmosphere at our home games in the Palm Fronds and everything like that. What is your how do you view how that atmosphere has changed and grown?
Oh, it's been beautiful to watch, right? So it's been an amazing thing, and I think it'll be more of the same next year. I even think some of the out-of-conference games might be like that. Who knows? I think we have the storylines to really draw the crowd, and I think they will deliver. So I think we'll continue to build on that hype, and it's something that will be exciting, especially once that Big 12 comes around, because next year is going to be an even bigger beast with the addition of Arizona and Colorado. Like, those teams are no joke.
You get 3 games that we guarantee to have a home slate with in conference. Who you choosing?
I want to bring Kansas back. See if we got a good luck charm going there. I would love to bring Arizona. Bring a West Coast historic program out east, give them their introduction to our way of doing things. And who would I bring the last team? I want to do Kansas State. Let's bring Kansas State. They thumped us at their place. We didn't get the chance to kind of play them again. So I think we should start that off with having them come to our place, and let's see how that goes.
I like it.
All right, Ben, nobody's smarter about basketball. I'll get you out here in this one. How's your golf game? I know you've been playing a ton lately. Where are we at? What are we shooting? What's the handicap looking like? How are we doing?
So we're at about a 9 handicap right now.
Okay.
How it feels, not the greatest. It really depends on the day. So, we're still in the lab, trying our best. That's part of the reason why I look so rough. I have a kid, and I'm still trying to maintain my golf game.
We can all relate to that, Ben. Man, enjoy your summer. Thanks for hopping in. Obviously, we get closer to hoop season. We will reach back out to you, man. But appreciate you hopping in as always.
Always
Thank
a
you,
pleasure.
Ben.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Ben.
Nobody's smarter about hoops than Ben Hazel. He knows a ton of stuff.
I'm hyped now for hoops.
Well, you know who else knows a lot of stuff? It's probably not these two guys, but if you haven't checked out their show, you might want to give it a look.
President, we got Adam as the CEO, and then you're the president, like the CFO, pretty much.
CFO, all right, I'll take that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Like AKA Michael. Look at those games.
Or something, or just have no playing time. Then I look like an idiot for putting him. Boomer. No, psych! Look at that. See this? See this right here? I have it on right now.
The Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF.
Trivia night.
I don't know what to do with all that, but if you're not watching Up All Night with our friends Clay and Andrew, a unique spin on all things UCF Sports. Dolly, you were on, I think, episode 2 or 3? I can't keep track anymore. How was your experience with Clay and Andrew?
Oh, they were great. Clay booking it like on a Saturday night. Hey, man, would you mind answering some questions for us? And then I realized we're all in competition with each other with different questions. So good to see the scientific method is still being taught in school.
Yeah, they didn't work that out really well. You know who they should have called? Probably somebody way smarter than them. And that is our guest here tonight. It's Kelly Ford. You can find his stuff at on his Twitter page, K Ford Ratings. He's the guy who puts out all the cool graphs and charts. He also has a bunch of TVs on his wall, which he's not showing tonight, which is fine. Save that for the season, Kelly. But we appreciate you hopping in. Thanks for joining us here on the Sons UCF Live.
Absolutely, guys. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, as always.
Well, let me start before we get into all your graphs and charts and numbers. Let me just start with this. It's June, Kelly, and you already have projections for the season coming up. How soon do you start this? Like, what is your process to even get to this point where you've got all these, charts and graphs out that you have all these numbers already ready to run?
Yeah, so to be completely honest, this is the heaviest lift for me all year, is getting the preseason version 1 numbers up, running, and out there. Because once I have the version 1, as I do now, making tweaks as I will between now and August is much more simple than doing it the first time. And then once we get in the season, I have a very good kind of weekly routine, much of it automated now, much better than it was previously. And so this is the heaviest lift. It probably should start for me as early as February. It does not start for me until April because my day job is in college athletics and my role at the conference office is very basketball intensive. So March being a very busy time at my day job, don't really get a chance to dive into the college football numbers till probably April. And then I'll be honest, guys, now it doesn't even, it really doesn't start in earnest for me until after that spring transfer portal window closes and rosters have somewhat settled. They're still going to have trickles here and there, but we have a pretty good idea of who's going to be suiting it up for which teams here once that spring window closes.
So Kelly, tell me, how do you put all this together? What is the formulas, all the calculations you do, and you use AI as part of your process?
Yeah, so, AI automation, trying to find efficiencies in my workflow has certainly become something that I've spent some time doing here in recent years. But the nuts and bolts of the model, it's going to sound very familiar to anybody who is a fan of Bill Connolly, SP+. When I started out, Bill and Brian Fermeau, who does FEI, those two guys, to me, they're the godfathers of college football predictive analytics. I think they're the best. I have a ton of respect for them. They really laid the foundation for a lot of people to come after them, I would say, including myself. So the things that I'm looking at in the preseason are really the same things that Bill's looking at. Now, how we go about calculating these inputs and what weights we assign to each of them is probably a little bit different, but under the hood, it's very similar to SP+, I would say, because I did kind of model it after that. So the three main inputs in the preseason: returning production. How much from last year's team are you bringing back? This also includes transfers. Now, for me, some people include transfers in other parts of their model or their inputs. I included in returning production. I have scalars, right? Because if you're transferring, from Georgia to UCF, that's one thing. If you're transferring from North Alabama to UCF, that's another thing. And same thing if you're going the other way. So we have scalars and multipliers to try to account for the different levels of competition that transfers have faced in the past versus what we're projecting they're going to be facing in the future. That's the biggest component, though, is the returning production. I also have, recent K-Ford ratings. So how good was UCF in 2023? How about 2022, 2021? I have tweaked the input or the weight of this input here this summer. Did some back testing. In the 2024 world of college football, it's much easier to overturn your roster in 1 year than it has been ever before. So does it really matter as much how good UCF's program was 3 or 4 years ago than it would have mattered if we were doing this exercise 4 or 5 years ago now? Probably not. So we've tried to account for that. And then the third piece is, how well have you recruited recently out of the high school ranks? And again, like the recent K-Ford ratings, there's some coaches out there, you think of Deion Sanders, they basically don't look at high school recruits. Everything's going to be built through the portal. You've got other coaches out there like Dabo Swinney who don't use a portal and they do high school recruiting. Most coaches fall somewhere in between. But what I have found through some back testing with some data here is that how you recruit at the high school level is certainly still informative, but maybe not as much now as it was just a few years ago. So again, it's a constant evaluation of those three inputs. What matters the most? What's that right mix of weights? And that's how we get the preseason ratings. Again, I'll tweak them, update them leading up to August. And then once we get going in the season, that preseason weight, it gets phased out over time as games are played. And it gets replaced, of course, with the in-season data from the games, which is much more informative.
How fun has it been to kind of dig deep into the numbers for the Big 12? Because essentially you're getting 25% of an entirely new conference, from the Pac-12 into the Big 12. You've had the 3 newcomers and an independent BYU the year before. So you're kind of looking at these trends from 2 to 3 years over, and you look at the league. Kansas State won the conference 2 years ago. Utah, with Cam Rising, they could have probably ran it back in the Pac-12 again. How do you see this league? Is it the deepest out of all the kind of the Power 4 conferences? And, essentially there's a huge sweet spot from the 2nd to 9th spot that can make a run for this conference. How has it been kind of digging deep into the Big 12 for you? And what are some trends that you maybe saw or things that are different from other conferences?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, just first and foremost. This is a very interesting conference. I'm very excited to see how it plays out. And I did say the same thing a year ago as well, because as you mentioned, a quarter of the conference last year, 4 teams last year were brand new. This year, we've got 4 more. So you've got a 16-team conference now. Half of them are new to this conference as of right now within the last 12, 13 months. So it's difficult to project. There's not much continuity there, but we're applying the principles that we apply broadly across all 134 teams and apply those to these 16. And as you can see on the screen here, these are the projected Big 12 standings on my V1 or using my V1 numbers. And you mentioned it, Kansas State, kind of a half game in front of everybody. Utah then a half game ahead of that 3rd place team. But you asked, is it the deepest conference? I would say yes. Of the Power 4 conferences, you go all the way down to West Virginia, who's number 10 on this list. They're within less than 2 games of 2nd place in the projected conference standings here. I think you could make a case and lay out an argument for anybody West Virginia or above. And I'd listen about, hey, this team, here's why they're going to make it to Arlington. Here's why they might struggle, but here's how this team can make it to Arlington. And I'd listen. If you go, Baylor or below here on this graphic, you might need to convince me a little bit harder. But man, guys, it's going to be so much fun. The Big 12 this year, so many close games, a lot of teams that are going to be right there might get a bad bounce, week in, week out, might just fall on the wrong side of these 1-possession games. We're going to have, I think, some really good teams in this conference whose fan bases are not pleased at all by the end of the year because of the record that you have. Doesn't mean you weren't a good team. It means it's a tough league with a lot of close games. And on the other side, we might get 1 or 2 teams who have fan bases like, wow, I really didn't think we were going to win 9, 10 games this year. But if you can win those close games in this conference, I think that might be a bigger difference than any of the other Power 4s because of how deep the contender pool is. It might, to be transparent with you guys, it might lack some of the elite teams at the top end, at least of the power ratings, but it makes up for it in depth. And we know that the winner of the Big 12, 99.9% sure, is going to get a bye in this 12-team CFP. What will be interesting to me is how or if the Big 12 gets a second team in. And I think there's a couple paths for that. I don't think this is necessarily a one-bid league, if you will. I think there are paths to have 2 teams or multiple teams in. I do see scenarios where only 1 team does make it, though, and it's all going to depend on how these close games fall.
Kelly, let's look more specifically at what you have listed for UCF here. So first off, for those seeing this for the first time, how do you read this chart? So what are the key metrics or numbers that UCF fans need to look at as it relates to what the data is telling you here?
Yeah, so there's a lot in these team projection graphics. I revamped them a little bit from last year's look. I tried to streamline it, tried to make it, make sense. But if we just kind of take it section by section, so if you start all the way over on the left side, 2024 projection in black there with the white text, look under there, those first 2 rows, it's a rating and a ranking. That tells you what UCF's K-Ford rating is overall, 5.7. That's on a football points per game above or below FBS average scale. So what's that saying is UCF, by my model, V1, is suggesting that UCF is 5.7 points better than the average FBS team on a neutral field. So that's what the 5.7 is. That ranks 40th out of 134 teams in FBS. The offensive unit rating is a 68. Now that's on a scale of 0 to 100, where 50 is average. So you can see that ranks number 43 in the country. The defensive unit rating is 55. That ranks 52nd. And the special teams unit rating is a 9 out of 100. But before fans get too upset, like the special teams, it's showing disproportionately because it looks like it's an equal third. It is not. Like, special teams is a very small component of this, but fans asked for it. I thought, I have it. I might as well try to put it out there. Maybe I need to change how it's presented though, so it doesn't look like it's 1/3 of the weight. But you can see that UCF right now projecting to have the number 121 special teams unit. If you look down below there, you can see the national rank of what UCF was overall, offense, defense, and special teams for each of the past 10 years. So you can see by my numbers, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, a great stretch for UCF, ranking in the top 20 in the power ratings at the end of the year, every single year. The offense was always, top 14, and the defense was really best by my numbers in 2019, but certainly was respectable and above average a couple times in there as well. So that's how you read the left side. If you go all the way up to the top, that's not about UCF. That's about their opponents. So that's their scheduled difficulty. It's a 56 overall out of 68 Power 4 teams. So UCF, by my numbers, has a pretty favorable schedule, which is good for UCF fans, hopefully. You face the 57th most difficult collection of opposing FBS defenses. So there's only, about 10 teams out there, Power 4 teams out there that face an easier collection of opposing defenses than UCF. You play a little bit better offenses on a week in, week out basis. That's number 31 out of 68. And then the special teams you can see is 25th out of 68. So that's how you read the left. That kind of next middle portion where it talks about offense, defense, special teams, that's shaded between green, which means UCF has an advantage with that unit, to red, which means UCF's at a disadvantage. White is more neutral, and it's grayed out for FCS teams. But against any FBS team, you can see relatively, is our offense going to have a projected advantage or disadvantage in this game? Same thing with special teams, same things with defense. So you can see more weeks than not, my numbers are suggesting that UCF should have the advantage on the offensive side of the ball in these games. At Iowa State against a defense that ranks number 20 nationally, maybe not. In the final game of the year against Utah against a defense that ranks number 10, maybe not. The defense might be at a little bit more of a disadvantage, at least according to my numbers right now, on a week in, week out basis. Same thing with the special teams there. Then their win percentage, that's the expected win percentage or win probability that UCF has in any given game this year. You can see it ranges from 97% against New Hampshire to open the year down to 28% at Florida there in week 6. Every other game somewhere in between. And then if you go to the other side of that kind of weak column there in dark gray, you can see your opponents. And it's who do you play? It's where's the location? What is the opponent's offensive or defensive, offensive, and special teams rank out of 134? So that's just kind of a quick glance. How are the makeup of these teams? Again, you get some of that from the relative advantage section on the left. And then my favorite part of the preseason team projection graphic is all the way over here on the right. It tells you what's the percent chance by my numbers that UCF will win exactly X number of games and at least X number of games. So to restate that, my numbers say there's a 26% chance that UCF wins exactly 7 games this year in the regular season. There's a 67% chance that UCF wins 7 or more games this season. That's exact same concept is applied to the conference portion over there on the right. 28% chance to win 5 games, 63% chance to win at least 5 games in conference. And then because conferences have gotten so large and some of them only play 8 games, of course, we know the Big 12 plays 9. I've listed there what teams does UCF not play in conference play. So that's listed as well. And then finally, the last piece here down at the bottom there, CSD 13. That's your conference schedule difficulty. So out of the 16 teams that are in the Big 12, UCF, by my numbers, has the 4th easiest conference slate of opponents. Most notably, you miss Kansas State, right? You miss Oklahoma State, you miss Kansas, Texas Tech, all those teams projected to be pretty darn good. And so missing those is going to help your conference schedule difficulty. So I know that's a lot. Hopefully it made sense. Certainly happy to answer any more questions, but I try to pack a lot of information into a small window here, but also try to make it somewhat intuitive as you're reading it in any given section.
When you look at last year, you talked about the metric of, one possession losses, and, UCF certainly suffered in that category last year. When you look at the overall depth of the conference versus last year when Oklahoma and Texas are part of the conference, is this conference, were they able to replace Oklahoma and Texas by the depth, or is it stronger or weaker?
I love that comment there by Matt. Hey, Matt, I appreciate it. I prefer college football to the global issues, but that's great. Sorry, I had to. That's a good question. It's probably an unpopular opinion, but I'm a neutral, objective outsider. I don't have a stake or a horse in the Big 12 race, although I love this conference. I love going on 10-12 Network and talking to anybody, you guys, especially. It's always fun. I don't think you can replace Texas and Oklahoma. Those are 2 blue bloods of college football. They're huge brands. They traditionally have a lot of success on the field. We can make all the Texas jokes we want before last year, and I'm here for it too. I don't think you can replace them. So that's just first and foremost. But I do think that the Big 12 is still a really good conference, and I certainly think it still belongs within the collection of Power 4. There's still a Power 4 dynamic, and the Big 12 is one of them. And I think these programs that you've added the last couple of years, as I quickly just look down there, Utah, That's been a really good program in the Pac-12 now for about the last 5 years, going back longer than that, but they've had a lot of high-level success the last 5 years in the Pac-12. That's a really good program that I think is going to come into the Big 12 and be able to compete right away. Arizona, I mean, I know we're talking football, but from a men's basketball standpoint, like that's a school, that's a program that you want in your conference. Their football has certainly been improved here. I know we got a new coach there at Arizona, so we'll see how that goes, but I'd be excited about that one. UCF, of course, one of these newcomers, had a ton of success in the American at the Group of 5 level, certainly well positioned being where you are in the state of Florida, access to talent with recruits, attractive transfer portal location. You're standing within the Big 12. Certainly should not be understated. I think UCF's future in the new look Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma is very bright because somebody or somebody's is going to ascend and make this their conference. It has been, for right or wrong, it has been the perception that this is Texas and Oklahoma's conference since it was founded, as the Big 12 back in 1996, I think it was, or around that time. They're gone. We need new flag bearers in this conference. I think there are programs, UCF is one of them, who are ready to take up the flag. And I'm very curious to see these first couple of years of this new membership alignment. And who knows, guys, it could change again. I work in college athletics. That bomb could drop any day and the whole thing shifts again. But if we get this group of 16, for the foreseeable future, 5, 10, 15 years, I think UCF is really well positioned, especially from a football standpoint, since that's what we're talking about, to really put your stamp on this on this conference and say, Texas and Oklahoma are gone. We're going to start filling that void. So it'll be really interesting to see that power struggle this first couple of years. Who can establish themselves as the dominant force in this conference?
So you had your projections for us to be going, and I love your work because it kind of brings everyone kind of down to earth on the pie in the sky and the message boards of the transfer portal, and Gus Malzahn will turn around this year for sure. You have us going at 7-5, 5-4 in conference. Looking at your breakdown, would you say definitely? I mean, take away the home FCS games. I mean, the tail of tape for us this year is can we win on the road? There's some hard, going to the Swamp, going to Jack Trice Stadium. Then we have to go out west to Arizona State, and West Virginia is no slouch as well. Winning on the road is going to be paramount for us. And do you have something in your formula that accounts for exceptional home field advantage, like going to play somewhere in the Swamp, or vice versa? Someone coming to the bounce house.
I'll take those questions in reverse order. For the first time this year, preseason V1 2024. I have a variable home field advantage baked into the model. So prior to this year, I used a standard home field that was applied equally across every single team. That meant that Alabama at night gets the same home field advantage as the bounce house during the day as Ball State at noon, right? Like everything was the exact same based on some historical data and betting trends, ATS, home spreads. I have compiled now a large enough sample size and back tested it to a point that I'm comfortable with applying a variable home field. What I haven't done yet is account for the time of the game, because I do think it does make it, or the opponent that you're playing. Is it easier to get up at night against your rival in a top 25 showdown? That bounce house is probably going to be bouncing a little bit more than when you welcome, no offense, New Hampshire. Well, I guess that's on a Thursday. When you welcome Sam Houston to town to probably play at noon or 3:30 or whatever it's going to be. So I haven't gotten that deep, but I am happy with my variable home field advantage based on venue. And so that's yes. And then back to your first question, what's the key? How does it break down? I'd have to go back and look because I posted these graphics for every single team, and I should have rechecked the UCF one. I might have even posted that for UCF. I only did it for one team, but it probably applies to more than that. And it might sound pretty elementary, but more than any other team, maybe UCF, yes. It's how are you going to perform away from the bounce house? How are you going to perform on the road? Because as I'm going down the schedule right now of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games on the road, you currently only have a win expectancy above 50 in one game, 50% in one game. And that's at Arizona State, who many people, including myself, project to be the weakest team in the Big 12 this year. 72% chance to win that game. Take the Florida game out of it. I know it's a huge rivalry, and you guys are rightfully so really excited about that. And you might be able to get Florida this year. I believe that, 28% chance, almost, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3 chance. But look at the conference games. At TCU, 1 in 3 chance. At Iowa State, 38% chance. At West Virginia. Now you're getting West Virginia off a bye. I'm not sure. I can check really quickly. Is West Virginia coming off a bye as well? No, they are not. So West Virginia is home to Baylor the week before that. That could be a big difference in your game against West Virginia. An off week scheduled between 2 road trips there. Both kind of in different parts of the country, which is interesting in the Big 12 now. But I think that's what it's going to come down to. How many games can UCF win away from home? That might go a long way in determining the overall success, at least from the standpoint of the fans of this season for the Knights.
Kelly, I haven't been this mind locked since I studied for the SAT, but as always, we appreciate your insight. If fans want to follow you, want to get more insight, want to check out more teams, where can they find more of your work?
Hey guys, I appreciate you having me on. I hopefully didn't speak too many numbers way up high in the clouds. I tried to make it relatable, so apologies if I didn't. But you can find me, on X at KFord Ratings. The website kfordratings.com is going to have a lot of the same content. I try to post it to the website after I post it on X. So those are really the two main places right now, at KFord Ratings on X and kfordratings.com. But I always appreciate coming on with you guys. I'm excited about UCF, not just this year, but like I said, potentially being a flag bearer of this Big 12 conference moving forward, especially in the sport of football, because I think the potential is massive for UCF, given the location, given the recent level of success that's been had, at the American and then also now transitioning to the Big 12. I'm excited for you guys, and I appreciate you allowing me to come on and share that.
Thank you,
Kelly. I know you got a full-time gig. Do you get a chance to go to games? Have you ever been to a game in the Bounce House? Do we got to get you to Orlando to watch a game with us?
I do go to college football games. I have never been to a game at the Bounce House. So if we've got an offer coming down the road, I would certainly love to make that happen. I do have a wife and two small kids, so traveling to Florida is not as easy as me just hopping on a plane or making my way down from Indiana. But I would love to come down there and check out a game at some point. That would be great.
Dolly knows a bunch of people at UCF. We can make that work for you.
He'll hire the babysitter for you.
And he'll also watch the kids. Well, I know a guy named JP who's great with kids. But in the interim, we appreciate you hopping on. Have a great summer, and maybe we'll catch up with you as the season gets closer. Thanks again for joining as always.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Great stuff.
Awesome. Kelly Ford. Wow.
Locked in,
Mark,
man.
He's locked in.
He's got a bet, right?
You would hope, right?
I would hope.
You would hope.
That's how you get the trip down to Disney. I'll send him a DM.
Yeah, you would hope that would work out. We gotta do a quick around the kingdom here. Not a ton going on these days. Obviously, the football season's over, basketball season's over, but track and field still there. Several nights competing for spots in the Olympics, including Renee Jones and a bunch of other nights. So keep an eye on the track and field. You might find some Olympians. Hey, do you guys watch? We heard the Knucklehead version on earlier. There's another version. There's the Yang to the Yang of Up All Night, and that is Around the Kingdom with Trace Trelko and Eric Lopez. They were on this week, and here's a little bit of that back and forth between those gentlemen.
Well, and here's the thing. For all the, oh my God, how can you sell off the Big 12? How many teams are in the Big 12, Trace?
16.
What are we talking about? Maybe we should.
It's not the most important big either. The Big 10, which has got how many? 18, 16, 18, 20, whatever.
What are we protecting here? What are we really protecting here?
It's not a name that means anything anymore. It's not accurate. It doesn't have the right number of teams in it. And you don't know where the number will change again. Even if you locked it and changed it to Big 16, you don't know what it'll become next.
Always entertaining. Eric Lopez gets very excited, wears a bunch of random jerseys. Check out Around the Kingdom each week on the Suns YouTube channel. Speaking of Sun stuff, Clay Pasco manages this new Instagram account we got working there at Sons of UCF. If you haven't checked that out, Clay's doing a fantastic job. He got a lot of reels going these days. Dolly, you a reel guy? I learned last week Trace Tucker was a reels guy. I did not know that. Are you a reels guy on Instagram?
Yeah, you kind of scroll through, but I wouldn't want to see Trace's
I'm dying to see his algorithm.
His algorithm on his reels.
I'm dying to see. Yeah, that may be a show within itself.
Beer and Cubs and maybe Cubs. I don't know.
Speaking of Cubs, you can also check out Suns merchandise on knights-fanshop.com or at sunsucf.com. Some of these various shirts that I think the three of us are all wearing. This logo designed by Miguel, who is the proprietor of said website. So we got hats, we got mugs, we got pint glasses. Check out knight-fan.com or sunsucf.com for more merchandise.
I got a pint glass coming, actually.
Is that right? Look at you, Jeff. Yeah. Thanks for your patronage. But before we get to that, we got the most important part of the show.
So it's a mailbag. So what?
So what? Do you know whose mailbag that is?
It's that time again. Time to open the Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF mailbag.
I'm too sexy for my shirt.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is unscripted. The question I get the most, by the way, when Trace is on PTO is, what does Trace Trelko do when he's on PTO? This particular time around, there's a spy with him who is filming his every move. I'm not sure if there's a movie coming soon, but I have exclusive footage of Trace Trelko on PTO for all of you to enjoy.
All right, now we're back at Hudson's Barbecue with Trace PTO Trelko. And for those of you wondering what he does when he's not on the show, well, this time he's enjoying some delicious barbecue from Hudson's Barbecue in Frisco, Texas. So, Trace, what did you think of the barbecue?
Very good barbecue, and now I'm enjoying the banana pudding for dessert. So, great experience here, especially hanging out with you, Rob.
You're a good dude. Go Knights.
Charge on.
Dahlia, I can't wait to see how you use that banana pudding line in future memes. I feel like that's going to be coming up really soon. But we've got mailbag questions as always. So this one comes to you from our friends at the 10-12 Network. I'll start with you, Jeff. If you could pick one football player to finish first all-team Big 12, who would you pick?
I'm going to go Kobe Hudson.
Mr. Drama, who do you got?
KJ Jefferson. We got to hit on one of these quarterbacks. Yeah.
I mean, if that happens, that's obviously more than those 9 wins or 7 wins that Kelly Ford is projecting. At OJT Feuds, transfer portal ads for Rich Wallace and UCF baseball. Is there one ad that got you guys most excited? Michael Emptiness says Chase Cruson is perhaps the best incoming ad for UCF baseball so far. I turn to you both, noted baseball experts. Who are you most excited about UCF adding in the transfer portal? I'll start with you, Dolly.
I mean, that kid sounded pretty sweet when he came out. I think he's going to be a projected first rounder, and also the pitcher Russell Sandifer. It's always good when local kids can say that they are excited and UCF is their dream school. And I'm also excited to see Wallace hit the portal hard. I mean, he got hired June 12th last year, which was right in the middle of the portal. So he kind of got a slow start last year. Now that he's hitting the ground running, I'm excited to see what he can kind of pull.
I like the fact we added more pitching. Isaac Williams, an ASUN all freshman team player coming in. So I like the fact that they're doing that. And I think the better news is on our outgoing transfers, all the guys that are leaving barely played. So that's a good sign there.
Guys do research on the show. I'm not used to that. All right. At Riley Carey 16, who do you have winning the Men's College World Series, Jeff Allen?
I'm going to go with my heart on this one and go with Texas A&M because I happen to know the longtime play-by-play man of the Aggies, Andrew Monaco, who worked in this market for quite a long time.
Dolly, who you got?
I'm going to go with the Vols for some Danny White magic. They've had their head coach, Tony Vitello, there since 2018, and they've never gone to the College World Series until Danny White got there in 22 and 24.
At Golden Knight _2, why is baseball the only sport where the coaches dress like the players? It looks weird. Dolly, is there another sport you'd like to see the coach dress up like the players?
No, I mean, I'd like to see maybe like football coaches do Oklahoma drills. Like imagine Gus like just running it back. I looked it up though. I think it was back in the early 1920s. The manager was an actual player on the team, who was just kind of the leader. But I think I kind of like that they've laxed the courtside basketball look with just like a pullover. Maybe they could, if you're in the dugout, you're in the trenches, so it's a little bit more play. But a shacket too could work as well. Just kind of switch it up.
Yeah, and it's not just the managers, the coaches too. In baseball, it's like it is kind of nutty, but it's just one of those things they've never have opted to change, whether it be college or professional.
At Emptiness 4 wants to know, what location are you using for a created team in the new college football game? Jeff Allen, I assume you're going to use your Knights. What location do you want to use?
So you're going to have to help me here because I'm not a gamer.
Okay.
So
you can build your own team and just kind of put them anywhere. So you can like
any stadium,
pick the jerseys.
All right. Let me go with Jerry World.
I like that. I'm not sure if that's an option, but I like that a lot. Dolly, where are you putting your the Dolly dramas in the new college football game?
I want to see if I can put it in San Juan, Puerto Rico. That'd be pretty awesome. But if not, I'd do it Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Just a fun town. I used to go there for work a lot and haven't been there in quite a bit, but it's a fun town.
Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And our final one from our roving reporter, Robert Attuler, 2 words. Should UCF prioritize building an actual physical location for their Hall of Fame? Dolly, would you like to see an actual building, almost like the Pro Football Hall of Fame or Cooperstown, for UCF's Hall of Fame?
Yes, absolutely. They have a little something in the Wayne Dench, but it's definitely not going to be in the basketball arena. It's got to be somewhere that everybody can kind of use it. So maybe in the front where that Welcome Center is at. when you come off of university. But we definitely need to do something, maybe like a Hall of Presidents too as well, with some Milliken and Hitton and all that.
No, I'm definitely all in for one location for sure. That it'd be a standalone.
Brian Peterson as well.
Yeah, we don't need that in our lives. We don't need Brian Peterson. Well, that's the mailbag, gents, but we're not done yet. Hold please. We got What's in the Box, sponsored by Charlie Hustle, promo code TEN1215. This week's What's in the Box question, I don't know what it is. Let me see here. Let me see what we got here. All right. This is an interesting one. Okay, Dolly, I'll start this one with you. Would you rather win a Super Bowl or any sort of a team trophy or an Olympic gold medal?
I would go Super Bowl trophy.
Is that the best? Is that the best trophy in sports?
No, people are going to say the Ball d'Or of just like for soccer, but I think a Super Bowl, there's only about 50 something of them. I mean, it's American culture. It's a team sport. You get the huge parade. I haven't really seen an Olympic gold parade.
A lot of talk these days, Dolly, about the Stanley Cup being the best trophy of all. Is that the best trophy?
That is.
Just for the actual trophy, look at it. Yeah. The rings come off and they update it every year and it travels. I would say that.
All right, Jeff, you want the trophy? You want the Jeff Allen only gold medal? I imagine you would win the heptathlon, Jeff, and there you are on the medal stand with your gold medal. Is that what you want?
You guessed it, because it's mine forever.
The Jeff Allen gold. Dolly, if you had to win a gold medal in anything, what do you think you're best at? It doesn't have to be a real sport. I've often said that if we had a competition about carrying the groceries in one trip, I feel like I'm on the medal stand. I can get the groceries in one trip. I don't care how many bags you got, how many cases of soda. I'm getting that in one trip. Is there something that you would absolutely be in the medal stand for?
Like the glue guy at work. You just kind of get everyone on the same vibe and having a good time. Jeff Allen knows about that. We used to work together.
Yeah.
Just kind of keeping the vibes up. I think I can medal in that for sure.
Adam, I think I could give you a run on the grocery thing.
I don't know how to try this. We need to, the Suns Olympics.
We should do Suns Olympics for a game. Yeah. Disney bats. That has some legs. 3-on-3 up to 11.
We may need to do some mental. You guys were coworkers in a past life. Jeff, describe Dolly Drama as a coworker.
He's a surprise at every turn.
All right, we'll save all that for the post show. Although I'm dying to know what that looks like. But as always, everyone, thanks for tuning in to Suns Live. I appreciate everyone for taking your time. Jeff, Dolly, appreciate you hopping in. And we tried this a few weeks ago. We had technical difficulties, so I'm glad we finally were able to get this completed. And Jeff, congrats, your maiden voyage on the Suns UCF Live hosting responsibility. So thanks as always for popping in. Again, everything comes out on our YouTube channel, so find yourself over there at Sons of UCF YouTube. Find yourself at sonsofUCF.com. You can read more from this man here, Dolly, and obviously check out everything we're doing on our podcast feed, wherever you get your downloadable content. For Dolly, for Jeff, for Trace PTO Trelko, enjoying some barbecue and some banana pudding, I'm Adam. We'll talk to you all soon, everybody. Go Knights.
Charge on.